I had some like super Hunger Game realization that like the NFL, literally the actual NFL, threw a party for a bunch of drunk 25-year-olds and like a couple people older like I am.
A couple drunk 30s.
Yeah, drunk 30-somethings. And they brought out, what was it, Sirianni. And like he's like there like he's a pretty well-respected NFL analyst. And like dude's like hosting this drunk beer fantasy football league for a bunch of 25-year-olds. And it's just like, this is some Hunger Game shit. They're like, all right, you got to go entertain them.
Dance for me.
Yeah, I was just like, I had like a hard self-realization that day. I was like, all right, what the fuck is happening with my life?
Is that when you knew your job was bullshit?
I don't think my job's bullshit. But yeah, I was wondering when we were going to get to the content trough.
We've been going for a while. Oh, wow.
Couple hours.
25 minutes. Okay, yeah. Let's just... Yeah.
Good luck editing,
We don't want to
asshole.
do like 3 hours again.
I did forget my notes, but I remember most of them.
I did not read the book. This is like high school all over again.
Yeah, I took a handful.
I'm going to still take the
mental
test.
I took some notes. I think, honestly, we're probably going to focus on the first 2 chapters because that's where I thought it was most interesting. But, okay, I digress. All right. Welcome to episode 4 of Content Piggies.
Oink, oink. I'm Taylor Ham.
I don't know what was mine.
Colonel Kielbasa.
Okay.
Bacon bits.
Swine Supreme. But if you want to just use your first names, obviously we don't have to use last names.
I like the moniker Taylor Ham. I'm not going to lie.
I do like bacon bits, and also I feel like Lizzo's estate is going to come for us.
Ooh, Content Piggy. This sounds good. What the hell?
Shall we?
Let's get started, fellas.
Let's get into it.
All right. Well, today we are discussing David Graeber's 2018 book, Bullshit Jobs.
He wrote it in 2018?
Well, he wrote an essay in like
2014, yeah.
Something like 2013, 2014 that then inspired him to collect
25 bad Yelp reviews.
Pretty much. Yeah. That fit his theory. First, some housekeeping. I did make 100 more stickers.
Dude, I found a sticker in my suit jacket. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And then like I pulled it out and everyone was like super excited about it. Like, what is that? I'm like, no.
Everyone who?
Everyone that was with me when I was wearing my suit jacket. I was at work.
Well, tell them you're in media.
You're advertising.
Yeah, I don't want to
get the name out
like,
there.
Hey,
you don't have to say that you're on it. Just say it's your friends.
Your friends, and tell Lizzo fans are going to want to really listen to this one. We got some big news for you.
So if you want a free Content Piggies sticker, go to contentpiggies.com/stickers. There's a form you fill out. I'll send you a free sticker. That's really it. Just give us your address. I'll send you a sticker.
Or just be around me when I wear a suit.
Yeah. Or give me a bunch. I'll give some to she loves them for whatever reason.
Well,
you could believe that.
Does she actually?
I'm sorry. Let me go ahead. Give me some so I give them to my pig sister.
Has she actually listened to this though?
I doubt it. But she loves the stickers. I've gone to the gym, asked her about the stickers. She has one on her water bottle, and I was where'd you get that?
I was at like a few months ago, and I had some stickers just like in my wallet, and I was like, oh yeah, here, you can have one. And without any hesitation, she just peels off the backing and slaps it on her her big ass like 2-liter water bottle, and I was like, you don't even know what the fuck this is. Like, what if this was a swastika?
I'm sorry, Brian. Your sister's a sticker slut.
Yeah.
It's literally the only sticker on the thing too. There was nothing else on there.
She's just been waiting. She's like, finally.
My first sticker.
Yeah. You never forget your first sticker.
So yeah, if you want a free sticker, just hit us up. Go to our website. There's a form, fill it out. The other thing, 2 people. My mom, for one. And 2, a friend from grad school, said that maybe, just address the why of the show. Like, what the fuck is this?
It's the motivation.
I only talk about the Z's.
Well, like the first episode, like, why were we talking about Ted Kaczynski? We kind of just jumped into it.
Why not? It's content.
Well, there you go. That really was my reason. It's interesting. It's yes, forbidden content.
I like to think we're a prestige TV where the first episode there's no stumbling.
We're
It
not
feels like
holding
you're
your
already in the
hand.
middle of a season. There's already a world out there, and you're just being introduced.
If you wanted to spell it out, you can go watch the Disney Channel.
Go watch Steven Stevens, bitch.
In 10 years, we'll release a prequel, and then you'll finally understand some
Oh
inside
yeah, I'm
jokes.
gonna play my younger self. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Content piglets.
Mommy.
Content baby.
All right, yeah, I think we have a lot of good longevity for this.
Yeah, well,
pod.
let's hope.
So,
Why are we talking about bullshit jobs today?
because you told us to read it.
Well, I think you
Yell
actually
at me.
you said
Yeah.
this could be interesting, which I agree with. I mentioned like an idea I had like years ago, and you're like, "Oh, you should read this book. It sounds like it'd be up your alley." But we'll get to that. I think the overall goal with the show, though, at least my goal, is to do something incredibly stupid really well. That's it. Like I want good production value and some forethought put into things, good editing, but at the end of the day, really dumb. So that's it. If there was any questions about what's going on here, that's it. Do something really stupid really well. This probably was in like 2015 or 2016, but I said to Colonel Kielbasa at some point, I had an idea of like a spectrum of like jobs from important to unimportant, and that if you plotted this on like a Cartesian plane, right? Important jobs and unimportant jobs that are either satisfying or unsatisfying, right? So you could have important and satisfying jobs, and you had a 4-grid matrix, much like a political compass, like something like that. And we talked about it, and you were like, "Oh yeah, you should read this book, Bullshit Jobs," because they kind of cover this very thing, right? There's this whole the slew of jobs that can be categorized into whether they're important or not important, but there's a category of bullshit jobs specifically that warrants discussion. So David Graeber, who's an anthropologist, he might have been raised in the U.S. I don't know, but he was in
born in New York.
Okay. So he's taught for a very long time at I want to say the London School of Economics. He's an anthropologist. He was involved in the
Original Occupy.
the Occupy Wall Street movement. I think he was whether he coined it or not, he was part of the people that coined like "We Are the 99%." He was part of that movement. So he has a very specific definition of bullshit jobs, and it is. It is a job that is so completely pointless, unnecessary, or pernicious that even the employee cannot justify its existence, even though, as part of the conditions of employment, the employee feels obliged to pretend that this is not the case. So, I mean, he like I said, he has a very specific definition of what a bullshit job is, and I think I'm fairly well. I've had at least 2 bullshit jobs. I'm fairly confident we've all had at least one. So I think that will be the center of the bullshit jobs discussion for our purposes here. But what are your first impressions, at least of the book? So I know, so Taylor Ham, you just read it this week, as did I.
You read the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And Colonel Kielbasa, you read it when it first came out,
I read it
right?
a few years ago. I refreshed the first 2 chapters.
And you
past
have,
today's.
this is virgin territory for you.
I mean, I've heard of David Graeber. I knew him like with the Occupy stuff, and then I've heard of the book. Like he goes on like he went on podcasts and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's
so.
dead.
I mean, but he did before he was dead.
He really threw himself into his work.
He went to prove that morticians was a bullshit. Job. Which I mean, let's think about it. It really is.
Yeah, they pulled up the blanket over the body. He's on the piece of paper saying, "Fuck you."
I guess my first impression is I liked the premise. I did not like how he tried to do things scientifically through subjectivity. But also,
it was very qualitative.
yeah, I think that the bones were good and he made some solid points. But I'm not going to hide my bias. I'm a right-leaning libertarian, so.
You're coming out.
Yeah, I'm coming out.
Coming out swinging.
All right, come in. I'm coming out.
No, but it's like for me, it kind of felt like reading somebody who believes in flat Earth, but then having some really good snippets about like the theory of gravity in there. I was like, all right, well, this wasn't a total waste.
Well, I mean, it's always good to see the other side of the
Yeah.
argument, even if it's not what you.
But looking at him, he looks like he pays a guy to fuck his wife.
I mean, don't we all?
Paid, past tense.
Past tense paid.
R.I.P.
Pour one out for David Graeber. Yeah.
All right, well, let's go around.
Yeah, this is the gospel for me, but no. I get why he goes to subjective, because you're not ever going to get an agreeable objective measure of what constitutes a bullshit job. So this is really the only, I think, sane way to even try to approach this subject. Given that, I do think that does mean there's limitations to what you can actually say about it. So I do think there's some limits to, what you can't say, because it is completely based on the person's feeling. Is what I'm doing 8 hours a day just fucking pointless? And you could have, I guess, hypothetically, two people doing the same thing who have a disagreement about that. I think he addresses that a little bit.
He does a little bit, but it leaves the door open, I think, too much for...
Yeah, it's hard to really say, but I think really the major point is that how does it affect someone's psyche to feel like that they're spending a third of their week doing something that they either hate or just think is pointless or harmful to the world? Or I think even just the pain of doing nothing, he says at one point, just you're not doing anything, and that itself is kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's like torture.
So what does he say? Since I didn't read the book, what does he say about like manual labor? Say someone is like
says there's
building something very simple.
There's necessary jobs, there's shit jobs, there's bullshit jobs, and then there's like evil jobs.
Well, evil jobs could be categorized. It depends what kind of job it is.
It's like a weird. It's like those 4 circle Venn diagrams.
Because there can be, as you said, pernicious jobs, right? Can be categorized as bullshit as well. Okay. And there is a certain subjective element to one's to a classification of a job. And he specifies in, I want to say like chapter 2 or something, that you have to kind of take average in essence of, most all people, if they all have a consensus that, look at it like climate change, right?
Okay.
Or climate scientists, for that matter, right? If there is the overwhelming consensus that most people holding the same job are in agreement that it is a bullshit job based on his definition, that regardless of subjectively, if one individual might see their position as being worthwhile, at the end of the day, it's probably, in all likelihood, a bullshit job. Even if there are holdouts.
What about like, you say you have somebody who does like think of like an assembly line kind of job.
He'd probably call that
you're sitting there.
job.
You have one guy who's just screwing a screw in or something like that.
Probably classified as a shit job.
Yeah.
That's probably a shit job.
If it produces something, he's very like means of production kind of guy. So if he said it produced something, and then he splits it up between caring. It's like caring jobs versus like teachers and like emotional jobs. He lost me towards the end with the UBI stuff because it was just like, where are you going with this, champ?
Well, I guess he's just saying that you need to eliminate a lot of these jobs. That's kind of the whole thing.
And yes,
and that's where UBI
exactly. And he even hedges that and says that, and we're getting a little ahead, but whatever. He hedges it by saying that like he's hesitant to even make any kind of policy prescriptions because there's inevitably going to be people who say like, oh, you're a fucking idiot or you're wrong. And like,
that his job's bullshit. And who's he to say?
Right. And he does say that in large part, like a lot of people probably in his position do have bullshit jobs. And to some degree, he agrees because of all the administrative tasks that are not involved with being a professor and not involved with teaching individuals, which is why a lot of people want to become professors or go into academics, whether it be for research or teaching. A lot of people don't want to do all the administrative bullshit that comes along with being a professor nowadays. But
Thanks.
So yeah. So with UBI, like, his thoughts are, and this is in the last chapter, which I will say chapters 4, 5, and 6 were kind of boring in my opinion, and I kind of glossed over it. I really kind of...
Which is I think, was it chapter 7 was the one that was like very close to my job? Because literally the only reason I found that interesting was because it was kind of similar to my job, but if you do not like understand what the hell I do, it was the worst. It's the one with the scripts. I work in media. I'm fairly high up at a pretty prestigious media agency now. I'm working on a very well-known national brand. And he starts talking about the media stuff, and like the guy was talking about being on the other side of it. Just to say this, he had everybody. 250 respondents he sent out.
He was collecting a lot of. He wrote this blog in 2013 outlining what a bullshit job is, and then in the following months and whatnot, his work was published through many journalistic mediums and whatnot, and then people reached out and relayed their own horror stories of bullshit jobs, whether it be through Twitter or email to him, and then he followed up with them, and that's where he, I believe, collected a lot of the anecdotal, like qualitative evidence that he used for this book.
Yeah, so he starts talking about how there's a lot of nepotism and everything in Hollywood now, and it's impossible to get a script released. And I think there is a lot of bullshit jobs in my things now, but they're all kind of loosely connected. But he goes into like the nepotism of everything too, and I think he made a really, really good point that actually started changing my life a little bit too. Is he said a lot of this
in the last week? This changed your life?
Yeah, literally. I talked to my team today about some of the stuff I learned from the book.
Christ,
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it wasn't a complete waste. That's why I was saying. I was like, it wasn't a complete waste. He says that a lot of people are like, I think bullshit jobs can be misconstrued, like also as misguided people. As like,
what do you mean misguided?
So like are just not understanding, like they don't see that they're just a cog in the machine, and they don't really see the big picture. And if nobody's showing them the big picture, they think that their cog is just spinning endlessly in a circle.
Like you're a guy who's just turning in screws and you think it's pointless, but it turns out you're helping to build a rocket ship.
Exactly. So I was talking to my team today, and he says in there, he goes, a lot of middle and entry-level people think their jobs are bullshit because they're unhappy. They're just doing manually tasks or anything like that. And there's one thing in my system that I have to do that literally you have to just click a button and you have to decide whether it's cable sports, data-driven shit. Like it's just a thing. And it seems so dumb because it doesn't affect your day-to-day at all. Like when I was an associate, I didn't do anything. Like I hated fucking doing it. And like I was just, this is so dumb. I hate this. But then I learned it ladders up into the forecasting and the pitching process, and like it, you changing that affects like millions upon millions of dollars. So I showed them that today, and they like kind of understood a little bit more that like all these dumb procedures are important for at least something. Now, does it get lost the higher and higher you get up? Like I assume this is all bullshit when you get to a top level degree, but for like my shit that I have to do, their bullshit stuff is
Actually important. Yeah.
So I read something a while ago. It's kind of somewhat related.
You can read?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, I heard it. Someone read it to me. That there's like 3 indicators of like a satisfying job for people, and I think it's complexity of tasks, autonomy, and I think there's some like a creativity element to it too. But like if you're just turning a screw, you have no say on what you're doing, no say on how you're doing it. It's the same task over and over every single day. Obviously you're gonna like think it's bullshit, but if you think about like from the perspective that like you have some kind of ownership of the process and you're doing it for a reason, then I think that motivates people more. It's like less bullshit in that way.
I would say that's a hard agree. Even if you don't like the task, if you have the freedom to go about it how you want, it can make a lot of difference. If you're being micromanaged and you have to do it a specific way and you have no say, that can make something that would just be averagely boring like tedious.
Actually, I think that's a good segue into another point that I think I really like that he kind of brought up. I don't even think he realized that he brought it up. It's people who need to justify their jobs. I think definitely fall into the bullshit, even though they wouldn't agree. But it does get into subjective. So like I've had bosses that like had to find something wrong with like the reports that I did to the point where it was so nitpicky. I did something as a joke, and then they found something wrong. They're like, you color coded it wrong. I'm like, dude, this is a 200-page document. Like you're gonna say a color coded. I was just like, all right, cool. So I literally just started making mistakes on purpose, and then he would like, okay, cool. So like he had to justify his job, which I think makes it a bullshit job.
You're kind of describing like the entire audit industry in general.
You're giving me PTSD from my last job, really.
You were what, like a forensic accountant kind of thing?
Technically, no. I worked at a forensic accounting firm. I myself did not have an accounting degree, but everyone I worked with did. but I was trusted to help, go through books and like try to find fraud and stuff. But it was the same thing.
Data analyst, maybe.
Yeah, essentially data
Turns
analyst.
out he was the only fraud there.
Yeah. It made me feel terrible each day. They're going to find out. So we would do reports for court because most of the time we were working with clients who were actively suing or being like investigated by the IRS or something. And there is some burden of proof that had to be presented to some party about things. And all these reports also had to be signed by him. Lots of times he would use templates for reports. And a lot of times he would say, oh, use this other project. And I'd basically just copy and paste, change the numbers around or whatever. And all of a sudden you got problems with it. But this is what you told me to, there's nothing wrong. Oh, like, what do you mean there's stuff wrong? I did your instructions here, But I think also if he didn't do that, he might in his own head feel guilty signing his name if he literally changed nothing, right? Because literally then I would have done the report completely. So he has to find, like you said, he has to find something wrong just to put his fingerprints on it a little bit. So if he's in court and he says, hey, yeah, you wrote this report. Oh, yeah, I edited it. I changed it. I did something to it. Because otherwise, if he says yes, he's technically like, I don't know, perjuring himself or something. I don't know.
So.
If he's under oth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a coworker at that place who was an older, at the time, older guy to me. He was like 33, so basically our age now. But he was like, a full accountant. He would write whole reports. He could handle himself, explain himself, justify what he was writing. It was the same thing though. The boss would edit something and sign his name. This guy got pissed. Like, why? My name should be on it. I'm qualified. This guy didn't want it though, so he actually left. But while I was still there, to go to a different place that required people to sign their own reports, actually. But,
That reminds me, my boss. I worked for the government at one point. And my boss tried to have me as the point of contact, like listed publicly for the entire world in the Federal Register for this program, and I was just like, nope. I didn't trust my boss at the time, and like he got fired at some point, and I was just like,
Dude, getting fired from the government is impressive.
yeah, what do you do?
Are you legally? Let's talk about this.
I'm a little
names.
hesitant.
Let's start off with
No,
the
we
real
can
names.
skip it over. Honestly, the Mystique's a little bit better. I like it this
Yeah.
way.
If it's too unique and Googleable, just
It's not. No. It wouldn't be like nothing is public, so it'd be too hard. to find.
What's the like elevator pitch?
Crimes.
He was not able to answer very simple questions, and they were just like he knew people in the Trump White House, and that helped him. And I think at a certain point,
your boss, you're saying.
yeah, my direct boss. I worked for directly for one of the chief officers in a department in the federal government, so moderately high up, I guess.
I mean, you're in the federal government, yeah.
Yeah.
Already moderately.
And he answered, and I guess answered directly to an assistant secretary for the department. And yeah, he could not answer basic like budgetary questions, which is like one of the main points of the job. And they were just like, so what about this? What about this? And he just didn't have answers.
Pass.
Because
Pass.
pretty much like he like I will say this. He is an ideas guy and his heart was in the right place.
I'm a big picture guy.
Pretty much, yeah.
Beyond the budget. Look at it.
He is a big picture guy. Like I trust that his heart was in the right place, but at the end of the day, like he was a salesman and he didn't
Know what he was selling.
he also just didn't know what he was doing.
So he's like someone that like talked himself up to a high position.
Oh, very much so.
I call those promoted to incompetence.
That's the Peter.
The Peter principle, which actually very, very much describes my career
Yeah.
so far.
But why is it called the Peter Principle?
So the
'Cause
guy
about
Some asshole Peter
Yeah.
coined it, yeah.
It's you get promoted to the level of your own incompetence, right? So you are really good and really like efficient and effective at whatever position you're in, and then effectively you get promoted to management because time goes on, right?
Think of like
That's
Michael
usually-
Scott.
And then you
That's
do good at that, you get promoted again, and you keep getting promoted until all of a sudden you're out of your depth.
You're out of your depth. You don't know how to operate at that level anymore, and maybe you're just really, really good at being a salesman, but you're not good at being a manager of other salespeople.
It's like Michael Scott is a great salesman. He gets promoted to the manager. He's not a good manager, and that's like the whole the idea of like that's how. I mean, the problem is that no one like gets promoted like that anymore.
people.
That's a 1950s
Yeah,
thing.
I think
Well, like best salesman gets promoted.
I don't think that people like, oh, someone comes into your office and says, I'm moving you up to direct a kid.
But isn't this?
I mean, if you're at a certain job where that's like there's like like a career path that way, but most jobs are not like they're not just giving you.
I'll
You gotta
argue though
apply
that like
for it. You got to fight for it.
what about like I know this isn't work, but what about like being a legacy at like an Ivy League institution, right?
Oh yeah.
It's not work or it's not labor, but you're being promoted based on your family's credentials and your family's reputation, but you haven't done anything, and then you end up, because of your degree at say Harvard or fucking Yale, Princeton, what have you end up in these positions of power and you're totally unfit for these positions.
I would say now the way it seems to work, I'm going to call it the Colonel Kabasi principle. You get assigned more roles until you have reached your level of incompetence. You're not getting promoted.
I
You just get-
110% agree with
You're
that.
wearing
Yeah.
too many hats.
if once they see that you're able to manage what they're giving you, you're going to get more. And they're going to keep doing that until you reach your breaking point.
Yeah.
My big revelation early on in my career, like that, like it greatly influenced me, is I realized that like the idea that you're just gonna work really hard and like do all this extra shit, and then people are gonna recognize that, and like it's gonna improve your
Respect you
career
for
and
it.
respect you. It's like that's nothing. You're just gonna do extra work, and it's just like okay, oh okay, he's gonna do this report. Like okay, all right, asshole.
Also, you got to go brag to the other guy who's doing the same.
Yeah,
shit.
no one's going to like give you more money because you're like staying at the office 3 hours later or whatever. They're just gonna like be like, oh, look at this sucker.
Yeah,
know?
you're just getting free labor at that point.
They're just getting free labor, so it's like you got to kind of. I feel like that's like a self-respect thing. You got to like respect your own time and your own skills.
There's something I hate more than a work martyr.
Work.
We talked about it
Very,
before.
very true. I don't know if we talked
I
about it on
used
the
to
pod,
be
but-
one.
No,
and
yeah.
then like
Oh, I'm happy you're not anymore. That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
No, I hit that wall and I was just like, I want to work really hard and everything. And then they like had the position open for me and like they got rid of all of the positions. Like literally just took it out. So I was like, oh, so all the hard work that I threw in to like prove myself for this. Then they're
But
like,
that makes you a better employee now that you're like realizing that you don't you don't give into that like the grind set nonsense that doesn't do anything.
and I've been pushed up because of that. I was like, guys, I'll fucking leave. You guys don't care. Like, you're just like, none of you care for me. They're like, we fight for you. I'm like, you guys don't.
That's like the biggest thing to learn is like your own professional self-worth, that you have like some value that like you can, if you leave, like they're fucked.
Yeah. They're,
Oh, yeah.
You're the only one.
Like you know that you have value and you have leverage and like that you could do something at somewhere that would like impact the company.
Yeah.
But bullshit jobs. Let's talk about those, shall we?
Well, real quick,
so-
just relate to what you were just saying. Though, actually,
Yeah.
it just reminded me of something funny. In the software world, they call something a bus factor. So, like, if a project
And
has
you're a software engineer, right?
essentially, yeah,
Okay.
for the most part,
Let's call it that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not identify anything.
Yeah, I mean, I wear many hats now, and most of them are too heavy. But so, a bus factor is how many people would have to get hit by a bus before this project or this company just fucking goes under. And there's lots of things I work on that have a bus factor of 1, and that's me. And if I died,
So
then no one
basket.
then no one at this company would be able to do what I was doing.
My sister says that she was like, what if you got hit by a bus today? You have to like, teach other people how to do this.
Bus factor.
I'm more of a fan of the bust factor is how big your titties till it starts.
Before I stopped doing my job. You got a bust factor of 1, girl.
Maybe 2 if I'm feeling all right that night.
Let me say my bust factor is I'm about to bust.
My bus factor is about 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's more of a unit of time instead of distance.
Depends how many days it's been, but
Yeah, what do you guys think was your worst bullshit job? I think
Oh,
This is a tough one.
it's hard to say a whole job, but there's definitely
let's-
bullshit projects.
let's ask this. I want to do one thing before we get into like our own.
personal experiences.
Yeah. All right. So there is just some more. This comes up in chapter 2. He categorizes 5 different types of bullshit jobs, which I
Yeah,
think
let's go
are
through that real quick, because then we could say what kind of
Yeah, what we think
Exactly,
would
yeah. So there's 5 categories, and they are as follows. There's flunkies, and these are the types of bullshit jobs that exist primarily to make someone else look or feel important. And he gives the example of, say, like a doorman or a receptionist at like a big firm, or a cold caller on Wall Street.
or Christopher Moltisanti, it's just-
Yeah,
you want your entourage.
Just to make the person that's ahead of you feel like, oh, I'm in charge of 10 people instead of 6.
Right. When I walk in a room, it's a whole crew of people
Yeah.
walk in a room. Yeah.
Right. So the second of these types of bullshit jobs are goons, and the thing that is distinct about them is there's some sort of aggressive element that exists within the job, and the job exists only because other people employ them, and it's largely that they have a negative impact societally or culturally, what have you. He briefly
Telemarketers.
What's an
and stuff like
example?
that, right?
Of a
Yeah,
goon?
I was thinking
one.
actually, honestly, Taylor Ham, like, you know, your position, I guess, if you think it is a bullshit job, like aggressive in like that you're coercing individuals through marketing and advertising.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
Well,
like
you're
physical
more
negotiating.
sales, aren't you? Like,
Nah, I mean, I'm negotiating like the placement. I guess I'd be more like described as like a realtor than a
like broadly speaking, it's sales, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
kind.
Well,
not
so okay,
really,
there is another classification of jobs that he posits in
buyer
this.
of the sale.
Right. There's like primary bullshit jobs, and then there's also like secondary or tertiary bullshit jobs. So like early on, he talks about a military contractor, or it's like a sub contractor. So the military is contracting out some activity.
Equipment replacement.
Yeah. And it whatever it is then subcontracted out to some logistics agency, and then that thing has some facet subcontracted out elsewhere, and then the employee that Graeber spoke to is then a further subcontractor who deals with like HR or something. So there's like multiple.
Wasn't he like a contractor of the agent? Like he wasn't even like a full-time employee, right? He was like a
I don't remember.
Yeah, but he was like 5 levels
Yeah, he was
separated.
super removed.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are multiple levels of extraction or separation, right? Like Kevin Bacon kind of thing. Like you could be doing a job that you might think is important, but is really in support of a bullshit job. Yeah. So I was assuming that your kind of position might be something of that nature.
I mean, it could be if you take the advertising industry as a whole, like if you consider the advertising bullshit or marketing bullshit, then yes, 100%. I have most likely a secondary, not even like tertiary or anything beyond to that point, like bullshit job. I don't think
You're the
advertising.
gatekeeper, essentially.
Yeah, I don't think advertising is bullshit. I would be hard pressed. Like, you know, you have to sell things, you have to buy things. Like, do I think some aspects of it are 100% bullshit? Like,
it's like most things. Something,
yeah,
you know,
and
nothing's-
he goes into that too. Like, there's jobs where like they're bullshit X amount of time, and
Right. I think that's an important distinction because even jobs that you think aren't bullshit have bullshit aspects.
then vice versa. There are some.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he gives further clarification of what he defines as a goon position is, you know, stating that the holder feels that their job has no social value and ought not exist. So you might not feel like that, Taylor Ham, but other people in this goon or aggressive type, you know, category of bullshit job might feel that their job ought not exist. And then also that the job holders of these positions see that their job is manipulative, and possibly aggressive. And that's why I kind of came back to you being that marketing and advertising is all about coercion and convincing and persuading individuals to do things that they either might not otherwise do or that
Just creating demand.
creating
essentially.
demand,
Yeah.
right, where there might not be demand otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're I think advertising is like just a neutral ground because you could be advertised like those bullshit ads you get
3 a.m.
3
for
a.m.
a
or
reverse
like
mortgage
if
or
you're
whatever.
perusing a website of ill repute and you see those scam ads that pop up, like that's still technically part of something like I could be doing, but you know those common 5 seconds games, they're not real.
Try not to come.
Yeah.
But it seems like the whole point is to.
It's like I feel like I would want my money back if I didn't. So I think like those are pernicious, and like that's the entirety of the entire point is to steal your money. So you could make an argument based on that's against your best judgment and things along those lines. So I mean, I like what I do, but you know you can definitely.
Do you like it?
It's
because
context
you-
dependent, though.
Yeah. Do you like it because you have fun? Like, are you?
Oh yeah, I have fun.
Right. But I guess what I want to ask is, based on what we discussed earlier, that Graeber says like it's largely there's a big subjective factor involved in all of this, whereby you might be that 1% of individuals who hold a job like you do that think it is not a bullshit job, whereas 99% of other people in your same position feel it is bullshit.
I would say that it's not more in that. I think it's more of when he talks about the higher up you go, I would say it's like evil. It would be more pernicious than bullshit. But like as I got higher and higher up, I start seeing the big picture, and that I think, I don't know, maybe I'm brainwashed. Maybe most people don't like my job doesn't come up on a registry, or like I have to really explain.
Like a sex offender registry, you mean?
Hey, man, dude,
Number one company for sex offenders.
that's why I can't go back to the state of Michigan.
You can pay that
But like it's, I have a running theory, and I think that's what I thought it was like the harder it is to describe your job, the more likely it is you're going to get paid. And he does talk about that, where like,
yeah, if you can't explain your job simply in like a few simple terms, you likely have a bullshit job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
if you can't describe it to a caveman.
Like a fisherman, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
a fisherman says like, yeah, I catch fish and I sell them to people.
I create software.
But what is software?
What oogers think software?
It ain't hard.
Macro hard. That was my nickname.
Really?
Not Microsoft.
Oh, here comes macro hard.
So Bill Gates wish he called the company.
It's like, oh shit.
Fuck. Honestly, looking back, Microsoft. Jesus Christ.
No wonder Belinda
Trying to say
bounced.
Bill.
Yeah, no wonder Belinda bounced.
She's like,
like
Microsoft.
Ginger.
Yeah, that's about right. He's like, get it. You're out. You're out.
Oh, you know for a fact she 100% made that joke as soon as the divorce was filed.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I would love to be a fly on that wall.
I mean, at what point would people stop making fun of that? I guess when the company became like $1 billion company, everyone's
When
like,
he could buy you as a human
well,
being.
no, when would people stop making Microsoft jokes to Bill Gates?
When do people stop making jokes and start getting real?
I hope someone walks up to Bill Gates, like looks down to his like hip level, looks back up, is like, yeah, Microsoft's about right.
I promise you, if I ever meet him in person,
Yeah.
I will do that.
Yeah.
Hey, if this thing ever takes off, maybe we'll get our chance.
We would love that.
He would love to be interviewed by
Bill Gates, please come on the pod.
Or
Yeah.
Belinda,
I know you're
whatever her
listening.
last name is now.
Belinda Gates, whatever the hell
Yeah.
your name is.
Yeah, then she started being a science teacher, and then they broke up. So I guess
Did he-
no one has it easy.
Did they get married? Did like he take half that bag?
I don't know if they got married or
He
whatever.
does have the money though. I did read that. He got
Dude,
some.
good for him.
Good for him. About time the fellas won one.
Yeah. Win one for the Gipper.
All right. Well, let's move on to the third type of bullshit job, which is the one that my previous positions have certainly fell in, along with category 4. Number 3 is duct tapers. So just like the silver/gray tape, duct tapers. So these third types, the duct taper type positions, these are jobs that only exist because of an error, right? So they're there to solve
Much
a
like most of
problem.
us being here, we only exist because of an error.
I've been a drunken one.
I'm an accident.
Oh, me and my siblings, yeah.
All three of them.
All three.
Okay, when you make an accident 3 times in a row, that's a trend at some point.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a pattern.
I gotta feel like soberly, like we're never having kids.
Come on. You think about the condom.
Look at the money. I'm looking at this sheet I made. This Excel sheet I just wrote out.
4 kids.
We
no
could travel the
money.
world.
About 4 monies, no kids.
So yeah, these are jobs that exist because of an error, whether it be condom breaking or an oil spill. I mean, I guess it's the same thing. So these positions are there to solve a problem that ought not exist. So these are definitely the types of positions that I have held most recently. So you are forced to organize one's working life around caring about a certain value because of the fact that more important people could not care less. So I was in a duct taper position when I was working for the government. I was part of a team. I'm hesitant to say what department, but
Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do? Fire you?
Department
not
of
rehire.
Moland Schmernerdity.
I'll say it. I don't care.
Don't say it. Just say it for the government.
I worked for Veterans Affairs. I'll say that much.
You helped him set up the affairs.
Yeah.
She's hot. You should go talk to her.
I found myself in a position where, like, straight out of grad school, I was like, oh yeah, like I don't mind working for VA. Like I thought of it as like
It's not Lockheed Martin or something.
right. It's like I'm working, I'm working in public policy, which is what I went to school for. And I'd be operating, within the federal government at a level at which I might actually have some influence. And I was like comfortable going in knowing that, I'd be working for what is in essence the only thing that could be closely classified as even remotely resembling something of like socialized medicine in this country. So I was like, oh, yeah, I can go work at VA. And given my political leanings, I was like, oh, yeah, I could see myself like working there. This from a policy perspective, like I should be fine here. Like I won't like hate my job. And I was in this like fancy fellowship program with the government. So, I had opportunities that a lot of other employees didn't have. So for all intents and purposes, I was pretty set. But really what it came down to is that Congress are a bunch of fucking cheapskates and VA is not an entitlement program like Social Security or Medicare is, right? With Social Security, Medicare, you, through your taxes, you're effectively paying into the system. And when you become of age, you can then reap the collective benefits that society and the government and the insurance program that we have created then comes back to you and you benefit from. VA, I thought was like that. I thought going in that VA was...
You serve and then you just get the service.
Right. It is not that at all. So my first week on the job, I did not have a computer, like a government issued computer. And, just because there's delays and whatnot, and then you have to get things through security and all that shit. So for that first week, I was just using my personal computer and I was just like doing background research on like the department to like get myself up to speed. And just like browsing the VA website, just like very clearly it states like at any point in time, Congress can revoke what you are, I don't want to say entitled to, but because there's entitlement programs like Social Security.
But they're not entitled to this.
They are not entitled to it. Congress at any point can just pull back funding from the department en masse. And if you don't meet certain qualifications, you might not get care through the Veterans Health Administration. Right? There's 3 administrations within the department. There's health benefits, so benefits being like, GI Bill, kind of like college benefits or home loans, that kind of thing. And then there's cemetery. So, I mean, most people think hospitals when they think VA. But yeah, so I was like, oh, okay, so this fundamentally disrupts my entire notion of the department I'm working for. Like, these people are actually not entitled to anything at all. If at any point Congress says, we don't want to provide funding to you, we can just fucking cut it. And my office that I was responsible for, Congress said, create this office. So I was part of the team creating this office. We were responsible for making things more efficient by like cutting costs in essence. But I became very early on, I became very aware that this was, I didn't have the language at the time, but this was a duct taper position because my position ought not exist, right? My position should have just been
an entitlement program.
An entitlement program where if you served in the military, let's just say you got Medicare, right? Medicare Part V, if you want to call it that, right? Like if you were a veteran, you get Medicare, right? That's what it should be. And maybe, doctors, nurses and whatnot, and social workers are employed by Veterans Affairs and whatnot, but you're all paid for. That's not the case. It's not the case at all. So my position was created by Congress because they're a bunch of fucking cowards and they didn't want to just make veterans benefits an entitlement program that if you serve in the military, you're entitled to healthcare, which is not the case. So I was most certainly in a duct taper position insofar as I was in a position that ought not exist because If they had just gave money to the department or just made it part of
their budget
or the Department of Health and Human Services, why do I even need to exist?
You're just
in
filling
this
a gap.
position?
Isn't
filling a gap.
Well, so what defines an entitlement? Because couldn't they just like, if they wanted to cut Medicare, right, or Medicaid, like why couldn't they?
You might be able to through like cost of living adjustments or like increasing the age at which someone is eligible for Social Security or Medicare. You might be able to then like decrease one's benefits over a lifetime or something like that.
Is it like constitutionally protected? Like, say I'm a president, I'm like,
No.
oh man, fuck Medicaid, I don't care about it. Like, let me cut it so I can free up the budget.
No, I mean,
you couldn't
this
just do
is
that.
like like Paul Ryan's era as like Speaker of the House. This is like what determined, and like even before him, like with John Boehner, right? Like they were all
Did Biden want to like
Yeah,
do
I mean,
this
Biden's
like 3 decades ago. Biden was talking about like reducing
Even all-
Social Security.
most
and
Democrats,
stuff.
I'm sure, wanted to
at some
reduce
point or
fucking-
another. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Joe.
Yeah.
You're right here with me.
Yeah.
Have you been on the floor of the Senate? You were in the Senate for a few years.
Yeah.
Time and time again, talking about the necessity, with pride, about cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare, cutting veterans programs.
No.
You never said that.
No.
When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government.
Look, here's the deal.
You're an honest guy. Why don't you just tell the truth here? We all make mistakes.
I am telling the truth.
And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it a third time, and I tried it a fourth time.
Joe, let me repeat it again. I want you just to be straight with the American people. I am saying that you have been on the floor of the Senate time and time again talking about the need to cut Social Security, Medicare, and veterans programs. Is that true or is that not true?
No, it's not true. What
That is not true?
That is not true.
I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government.
Everything was on the table. I did not support any of those.
Remember when we were talking about our 3-part series about a movie about biting dicks off, and now we're deep into the
Oh, no, that's coming later, don't worry.
domestic politics.
It's a different kind of duct taping job after the fact.
But content piggies, what content you got? Content. What's it about? Content.
It's stuff. Yes.
Do you have 2 hours of time and you just want to fill it with some noise?
Are you driving and want to turn your brain off?
Do you really want to turn it off so much you might crash?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also then the fourth category, box tickers. I also had a job as a box ticker with the government. And these jobs exist to allow organizations to claim that they're doing something that, in fact, they are not doing. So fact-finding commissions. I worked for a federal commission that was researching something that was mandated by Congress, and Congress has done nothing with it at all, and they never will.
Mandate these notes.
All right, and then the last type.
Moving on.
What are these called? These are taskmasters. So there's 2 types of these positions where
Not to be confused with the show Taskmaster on BBC4.
correct. These are where you're just assigning work to others. You might be assigning work to flunkies or something. And then there's a second type of taskmaster where you are creating bullshit tasks for others. You're supervising bullshit, or you're creating entirely new bullshit jobs, which would be then classified as bullshit generators, and you might actively be doing harm.
I feel like you just described like different types of quarterbacks. Like, yeah, we got the scrambler out of the back end like Lamar.
I thought of another good bullshit job. Probably the most bullshit of all is gas station attendants in like New Jersey. And
That's the most mobbed up job of all time. That was literally like you sit there and like you're gonna get paid.
there's no reason for it to exist. It doesn't provide any actual tangible
The rest of
service
the country
or
is
benefit.
like has
Oregon.
decided now. I guess yeah.
It's probably
They're
the
only the
lowest.
cool.
It's probably the lowest skill job I can think of. Yeah.
It's also kind of dangerous. If like you think about it, like
Yeah, I might
Duke
just kill
could just
one.
kill
It
everybody.
seems like you're just getting high all the time. Sounds great.
Actually, you know what? I might do. I would just quit my
honey,
job.
I quit my job.
I'm gonna be
Get high all day and just pump gas.
It's gonna work at Wawa near me. Oh no,
So-
this is for the Taskmaster. The quote I found for you earlier, right? Yeah. From Michael Scott when he's about to leave the Chili's with Jan.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's about to let the whole crew go because he's about to leave at like 1 p.m.
Okay, probably going to go late tonight, burning the midnight tequila. So I think you all could just take off now.
Michael, this shouldn't take more than an hour.
Well,
Do you always shut down the entire office when you leave for an hour?
no, that would not be efficient. Actually, they just don't get very much work done when I'm not here. That's not true. I know how to delegate, and they do more work when I'm not here. Not more, the same amount of work is done whether I am here or not. Hey everybody, listen up. This is what we're gonna do. You sit tight until I return. Sound good? Doesn't matter. It's an order. Follow it blindly. Okay. All right. Ciao. Adios.
That is a Taskmaster type 1.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have a bullshit job
Best
that they've
bullshit
had?
job,
Yeah. What's
story,
the
or
so my I had
project
my
or something?
VA nonsense and my federal commission nonsense.
All right, I got a good one. This was one that stressed me out until I realized how bullshit it was. This was me working for a. I was a
So
contractor.
they tell you, I was working at a daycare center, and they tell you have to feed babies every 3 hours. You do not.
They'll be fine.
What are they gonna do? Cry?
They'll cry, but it's fine. So my company was a contractor for a very large, let's say, bathroom hygiene company,
Summer's Eve, baby.
who made certain
Squatty
lotions
potty.
that you may put on certain parts of your body in the shower. Yeah. So part of what this company's directed had been before I even got to my company and I was hired was they wanted to start tracking every single barcode that came off certain production lines, specifically for their high-end products. Now, these high-end products, I look online, they're like $20. So I don't know. But it honestly, after reading this book, I realized this is probably some other taskmaster's job or trying to make work for other people or to make it look like he's doing something to improve the efficiency of his own company. Anyways, so now they're trying to track every single product that comes off of 3 different production lines, only for certain high-end products. Now, to do this, you have to, scan the barcode on the actual bottle and then the box that it goes in and then the pallet that it goes on. So you go in any store, they come in with a scan gun, they scan it, and they should be able to see, oh, this came from this production line in this state. Oh, this one came in from this production line in this state, et cetera, et cetera. The whole point of this, I was told by one of my bosses, was that they want to cut down on counterfeits, apparently. They have people who just sell bottles of counterfeit, I'm just going to say shampoo, to Amazon, and Amazon just sells it outright. And they want to cut down on this. And the only way to do that is to go into a CVS, scan one, and say, hey, this doesn't come from any of our production lines. And then go to the manager and yell at them, go, where did you get this? We're cutting you off. You're never allowed to buy from us again.
So it's a quality control thing you're doing.
Yes.
But is that really a problem at like CVS, or is it more like those like sketchy Amazon guys selling them for $10?
They say, okay, so actually I was told, they go to like thrift market and stuff, but who the fuck's buying like quote unquote high-end shampoo from, I don't know.
Is that,
like
is that much of an impact to their brand that like the
That
guy
too.
who shops
How
at-
much-
who buys shampoo at flea markets?
How
and-
much money could one, the counterfeiter, be making? And two, like,
You guys don't get your high-end shampoos and
This is
butterfly
like- this is like
knives at
weed
the
money
same
they're
place.
making for
Have
it.
you ever
They're not
been?
making-
You ever shopped or like been to the thrift store?
Yeah.
So there's like the clothing section, and then there's the like the back end where there's like all the random shit like books or toys or electronics and whatnot. And I shit you not, I'm walking down like one of the aisles one day, just like thrifting, just like seeing like what might be interesting. And there is an open bottle of like Suave shampoo.
Did you buy it?
No, what the fuck am I gonna do with a bottle?
No. Could you
Open
buy
bottle.
it?
Oh, could I? Yeah, I could buy it. Yeah, it was on the shelf. Like it was.
Someone ran out to the hose outside.
It was like listed for like $1. Like you could buy this
Wait,
bottle.
what the fuck is this store?
It's down the street.
Yeah, it's right next to Wendy's. So anyways, so that's their whole goal, to stop counterfeiters from selling their fake shampoo and just stealing millions from, I
really
guess.
millions?
I have no idea. I don't.
It's a
I
flea
can't
market
imagine it's
shampoo
more
market.
than like $500, but I have no idea. So the way to do this was tracking all the barcodes on every single part of the process, blah, 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 right? So when I first got the company, one of my first projects was like, okay, we're at the point now where we want to start putting barcodes on pallets, okay? My first project, my first foray into software engineering, et cetera, I kind of fuck up. People yell at me. I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry. I had to go back. I had to fix stuff. I'm like super stressed about it because it's like my first impression on like this company and these new clients, all this stuff. Okay. I finally get it working about a couple months in. Everything's going fine. No more errors. I don't hear anything for like a year and a half. We have meetings then later. Turns out this company, So part of their thing for the pallet barcode was they wanted their operators, the people on the production line, to put on 3 different stickers, and they're all unique. So they just can't scan one sticker 3 times. They have to scan each sticker individually. The only way we told them we could do that is if there's like some unique, each barcode has to be slightly different. There's no way around it. Otherwise, they could just scan 1 3 times and we wouldn't know. So at the end of each barcode, it's like 1 2 3 4 5 whatever P for pallet, and then we put a 1, a 2, or a 3. Right? That's how we differentiated them. Turns out, a year and a half later, we're having this meeting. Oh, yeah, these pallet barcodes, our distribution center, their scanners can't read them because they're too long. So we're going to have to go back to just having them all the same. And, so we know that they could probably just scan the same one, but we're only going to make them do it twice. And if they scan the same one twice, it doesn't really matter. But our distribution center, at that point, I was like, I am never getting stressed over this, working for this company again, because they don't know what the hell is going on. They don't give a shit. No one is talking to each other. I've been the middleman to communicate between other people in this company as a subcontractor more than once. And it's just like, at that point, I've never been stressed now working for this big name shampoo company ever again, because I just know that no one there is keeping the score.
So how does it make you feel that, like, say shampoo company corporate, like there's some like, controller freaking out about like this major losses they're taking on this program, and so he's like firing people from their jobs because they just didn't bother to implement this like thing?
I'll tell you something right now. I'm running a little test. All right. I got an email about 3.5 weeks ago from the guy saying, hey, we never got the files from this one production line. I've not responded. And I've not gotten a follow-up email, and I don't think I will. Now, also, I mean, also, the other part of this is all duct taping. So all these barcode shits, I gotta send them essentially an email. I'm gonna dumb it down. Like, I'm essentially sending a text file of all these barcodes at the end of every day. Here's what we scanned, at the end of the work order. Now, all these computers are on the corporate network, and I'm sending these to other corporate computers within that network. They could just go into the database and run these queries themselves. For some reason, I have to put them into a text file, send them to someone else, then they process this text file, and then put them into their own database. There's a much simpler, more direct path here, but for some reason, this is the way that they have decided to do things. And I mean, I'm not going to say anything. My boss is not going to say anything, because we get it's billable hours, and that's essentially what it boils down to. Like, can we bill for this, even if it is the dumbest fucking way to go about doing this? Well, they don't know that, or they don't care, so it's my job now. But I'm never going to stress it out again, because no one gives a fuck there.
Weren't you like, Bacon Bits, weren't you like at some point working an IT job where you were like just coordinating and scheduling?
Yes. Okay. That's a great one, actually. So it was probably the most bullshit job I've ever had. The work I specifically did wasn't, I was doing like tier 1 IT support. It's fielding calls and doing first line troubleshooting. And then you escalate it if it's something that you can't figure out, or like that's not in your domain. It's not that bullshit. I mean, I think it's a necessary function for companies.
Overnight?
Yeah. So, but the bullshit part of it was that the company itself it should not have existed. It was a service that is so profoundly absurd and like the whole point of it that it shouldn't exist. But it was there, and they were making money for some time. So basically what I did is I scheduled video conferences for people. So, or like that's what the company did. They scheduled video conferences. They offered like a service where like they would just hook up pre-scheduled video conferences for different employees. So say you have a meeting at 2 p.m. with the team in Atlanta, you would go into your, like they call it a telepresence room with all the cameras and the screens, and the conference would already be populated on the screen for you. And you just like have your 1 hour meeting, and then it's over and it turns off and you get out of there and you go back to your cubicle or whatever. And so like the entire company, the whole purpose of it was they sold these platforms so that like the tier 1 department that was doing the troubleshooting, we were like scheduling video conferences for people. So like our biggest client was McKinsey.
This was all pre-pandemic too.
Pre-pandemic.
Way pre-pandemic.
So our biggest client was McKinsey. Everybody knows McKinsey. Yeah. So they have like 1 million conferences a day, and our job was to just dial them in for them. And then obviously we're there for like tier 1 support. And I remember I asked my boss, I'm like, why are we like dialing these calls? Like, can't they just like, you go into a conference room in an office, there's a little like keypad in the center and you just tap the button. Like, why can't they just do that? He's like, oh yeah, they're just lazy. So like these people like that literally can't dial a fucking phone number or like a dial-in number. And now that I'm older, 10 years like past that experience, like I have all these jobs where I've had to like have virtual calls or like call in. You just go and dial the fucking phone number that you get in an email. Yeah. Like it's the most minuscule thing, but like our entire job was to do this. And then they would like, if there was a problem, like the people at McKinsey would get really pissed off. Like if I was too high when I came into work and I forgot to schedule one of their calls, they would like call in and they would call in and get like all pissed. Like, why isn't my call not here? Or they would like they couldn't just dial the fucking dial-in number themselves. Or they like if there was a problem, they would call us and immediately just flip like, well, you guys, I'm gonna talk to your manager, I'm gonna get you fired. And it'd be like because they didn't turn the monitor on in the room. And so like what my job was to like ping the monitor, and if it didn't come back, it was to like turn. I'm like, sir, you might want to push the small red button on the bottom right side of your monitor. That should provide a stable connection for your call. Thank you for your time. And that was like my job for probably a solid year and a half.
I remember you worked at, I think it might have been after that job where you were just watching Netflix all day. You took some job that you were wholly unqualified for.
Yes. Okay. I was IT support for a company that I'm not going to even name the industry because I got, I did get let go from it, but I was just
wait. Who here has been fired before?
Oh yeah,
I have.
All of us.
We should all real quick tell our wiring stories later. But.
So I guess I'll start with mine then, since I'm already talking about it. It was just an IT role, and like I knew a lot of buzzwords, and I mean you can't tell from the podcast, but once in a while I'm like a good talker on the phone. I don't know. It's like something happens to me where I'm on like a job interview phone call sometimes. And I'm just like,
you got the juice.
I got the juice. Sometimes it just happens. You're just hot. You're just hot. That's all there is to it. So I got this job by conning them with like a lot of like IT buzzwords that I had read on like forums and shit like that. And so I'm just like 22. I'm totally unqualified for this position. I had no IT experience. I didn't care about any of this like at this point in my career. I was just trying to like figure out what to do. So I go in there and it's like the idea is that like, oh yeah, we want you to just like build an IT infrastructure for our company. All right. How hard can that be? Yeah, I got this. And like no one knew about it and no one knew like the importance of it. And like, they just knew that like we're a company. We gotta have the IT, gotta have the computers. And so I didn't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm spending most of the time like trying to read like tech support forums on like on Reddit or whatever, and like trying to figure out like even just the smallest thing to do for this.
You're just
job.
Googling what is IT.
Yeah, I'm like 2 weeks in, I'm like, all right, fuck this, and I'm like going out for like 2-hour lunches and stuff like that. Eventually, I mean, to make a long story short, my boss was just a crazy person. She was Russian, okay, or some kind of Eastern European, and all I would do is. Her job was like what I was doing previously. She was just like had all these vendors doing the different IT services, but like she had a very negative relationship with all of them. And so I don't know for what reason, every single day, all she would do in her office is just be like cursing out these vendors, this fucking email server, on like it was all she did all day. You just hear her from her office screaming. And so I was like terrified. I'm 22. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I conned myself into this job. My boss is this Russian woman who's like threatening, Microsoft on a daily basis. So it was a very unpleasant position to be in for there. And that was probably the most anxious like 3 months. And then they just like the 3-month period came like for at-will employment. They're like, yeah, you got to get out of here.
Yeah, you got to fucking go.
So yeah, that was my my second bullshit job.
All right, so how'd you get fired?
I was working at what became a unicorn company. It was like one of these tech startups, and I was doing customers.
What the hell does that mean?
They became $1 billion company.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, they were like raising funds from like Google Ventures and whatnot. But I was just doing customer service because previously I had worked at a bar, like a beer bar, and I was pretty good at it. And I interviewed and I got the job. And I was really good at the customer service aspect of it. But because they were raising money from like the likes of Google and whatnot to the tune of like $100 million, they were very much interested in showing their venture capitalists, like investors, numbers. And I was more of the attitude of rather than just like pushing out quantity of like responses to emails, I was more like, hey, why don't we actually solve the problem that this person is trying to contact the company about? and focus more on quality of what we are actually trying to do. The product team who was like pushing out all the updates and whatnot to different like cities and shit was not communicating with the customer service side, so we were finding out about like updates from the user base itself, and it was just like, why couldn't you just tell us like you were doing this? We would have like been able to anticipate certain things if you would just like let us know. So I was very good at like finding bugs in the back end, like doing like quality assurance kind of shit. So maybe I should have been a QA person, but I was doing customer service, and my immediate superior was she did not like me. So after like 3 months of me just doing what I wanted to do, of like actually just solving problems instead of like answering 100 emails in a day, they were just like, yeah, you gotta go. So, but I was very good at the actual, like, if you're talking about customer service, I was very good at that. I had what was like considered the
gift of gab.
Well, no, I had a 96% like one touch rating, which is how many times you can send one email out, solve the problem, and never have them contact you again, which is really good, right? Ideally.
You're almost perfect on that.
What if you threaten the guy, and so he never wants to email you again?
Well, they're not measuring.
I will find you.
Like, oh, he's got the magic touch.
I'll end you.
No one ever talks to him.
My manager, like, you know, they're just seeing the number. They don't know how I'm doing it. They don't know the process. They don't know my process.
All of a sudden, metrics don't matter.
But after a while, they saw that, like, yeah, my one touch rating was incredibly high, but the number of emails I was sending in any one day was incredibly low.
Oh, because you were actually helping people?
Yes. They were like, yeah, this ain't helping our numbers to get venture backing from Google, so you got to go, bud.
Another $1 billion company?
Well, COVID hit them really, really fucking hard, so I don't think they're around anymore.
Good.
Karma's a bitch.
I'm so glad I created COVID.
Mine was walking into a sinking ship. It was like, looking back at it, it should have thrown me through a loop that, like, what the fuck I walked into. So it was a small media agency. It's how I got into the media world. And I go in and I do an interview, like, I do it through Indeed. I get it all. I walk in. It's a huge sprawling warehouse. It used to be like an AT&T warehouse with like they spooled copper or something. So it's like a small thing and then a huge is that, and that's where all the cubicles were. Go in, see the receptionist. Like, all right, hey, how you doing? Do the interview with the team I was eventually going to work with. She goes, okay, great. Come in. I don't hear anything for a week, 2 weeks, and I was just like, all right, hey, did I get the job or whatever? And I was following up periodically, like, so I was like, what, perspective amount. They fired the receptionist the day after my interview. So, and there was no receptionist again. So they didn't replace her. So all the company email was just getting bombarded, but no one thought to check it. So literally 2
Wow,
weeks.
so slow.
If only we had a receptionist.
So literally 2 weeks later, I'm like, hey, fuck is going on? And they're like, oh, yeah, sorry, you got the job. Here's all your shit. I'm like, cool. So, like, I gave you a start date that was, like, 2 weeks ago. Like, what's going on? So,
Hey, what's going on? You haven't been in work in 2 weeks.
yeah, that's how I was going to feel. Like, I was like, am I going to get fired because I was not hired? Yeah.
Just like the receptionist.
So I walk in, and then, like, they, like, show me around. Like, the beginning is nice, and, like, I get my cubicle. I loved it. But, like, there was just half of the building that just wasn't on. Like, it was an abandoned half of a warehouse that, like, no one went in. Like, it was just there. It was behind two, like, closed doors. And then the IT guy had his own office. He was a nice guy. His name was Mike. But then, like, our IT, like, section and, like, all the servers and everything were literally just out in the open. And, like, it can only be described as an outdoor shed from Home Depot, just inside the warehouse. So then all of a sudden, and it was in 2015 this happened, and they had a program called NPM 2000 because it was made in the year 2000.
Oh, yeah.
and it was all based on print, but they were trying to get into the digital side of it. So I was on the digital side.
Trying. They were trying to finally go digital.
Yeah. So they were trying to like get digital
Digital
ad space.
watches,
So
yes.
like everybody else was like this, literally like working with newspapers of like getting these print, specifically college newspapers. Like they're literally like sending out ads for Home Depot and shit to like these college newspapers. And like looking back at it, like what I do now,
For
and
all
like
the college kids that read newspapers.
They need to read through the dorms.
like and like legitimately like we would charge them. We were like, all right, like it's X amount for whatever, it's X amount, like you negotiate the deals and stuff like that. But like they're like, oh, it's $500 for like a display thing. I'm like, nobody goes like there wasn't guaranteed impressions or any like things like that. It was like legitimately it was like, cool, you just paid $1,000 to have your Home Depot ad just kind of there.
All those college
And like
newspaper fanatics.
we would get the tag information in, so like they would see like how many people would use, and like working now, like I'll see things with like hundreds of millions, you know, a couple thousand is like very low. There would be like 4, like literally 4, to the point where we would go on all the websites and just start clicking it to get to increase our CTR, which is very illegal.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds more than bullshit. That sounds like fraud.
So
that's pernicious.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes into too. So like I'm starting to realize like this is all bullshit, guys. Like our team was cool, but like we all kind of like the digital.
We're kind of just committing crimes.
Yeah, like
You're all
digital.
eating lunch, kind of side eyeing each other.
Like the digital side was like, what the fuck is going on with this? And then like literally the finance was an Excel sheet that like anybody could edit. They're like, hey, I did 500,000. Like
great add that to revenue.
yeah, like literally it was just like it was an Excel sheet that they would lock. And like you had to like update it with like MPOs and shit. It was so bad. Like literally, like I was in charge of it. I was, you know, however many years old, like that. And I was just like, okay, cool. So then they realized that I knew too much because I was also in the revenue shit and we were fucking with shit. So all of the print people I was called like a digital assistant or whatever, and they were called print assistants. So like the entry level people. Literally, like one day they announced like, hey, all the print assistants will now be known as like associates or like something vaguely similar. I can't really remember. All digital assistants will remain the same. I was like, okay, fucking weird. There's only one of us, me. Okay. Then legitimately they're like, okay, next they're like, we're letting go all of the assistants. And I was like, what? And I don't even get told that, like, so I, like, the guy literally, like, my boss, he was a huge piece of shit and just, like, the worst people, like, the big guy. He's the CMO of the company now. It's failing miserably. So he comes in and he goes, hey, can I see you in my office? And I was like, yeah, like, whatever. He's like, oh, did you also finish these, like, 6 projects that I told you to do? I was like, yeah, I finished them. He goes, okay, you go. Yeah, come in my office now. So I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, we're letting all the assistants go. And then I was like, aren't I the only assistant? He's like, no, we're letting all the assistants go. I'm like, on the website, I'm literally the only person that has the word assistant on it. They're like, no. I was like, is this performance based? Like, what's going on? Like, I didn't get a lot of training. I was just figuring out. I was like, no, definitely not. Just cut budgets or whatever. I was like, also, and they slide me this like fake packet of paper. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
NDA.
They're like, you need to sign this or like, we're not going to like contest your unemployment. I'm like, what am I signing? They're like, well, just sign it right now. And like, they're really like, just sign it right now or like, we're going to contest your unemployment. I was like, dude, I can't sign this right now. I was like, I have to read it. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm signing. And
Look at this. Look, we got us as a reader.
honestly, they were like, well, we have to get this notarized. I'm like, okay. They're like, we don't want you, like, we have a notary on site. So like, we don't want you to have to get pay for that. And I was just like,
Oh, how kind.
yeah, no, but I was like, oh, one of my friend's moms is a notary. Like, I will be free of charge. I'm going to take this home. Like, well, you have 48 hours to sign this and bring this back or
Or what? You're gonna fire me?
they're like, oh, we'll like take legal action. I'm like, all right, cool, dude. So like bring it home. And I like show it to my dad. He goes, you can't fucking sign this. I was like, wow, this is like you bar from ever talking to the cops or the FBI about any dealings that you did within the company.
or content piggies.
Yeah.
But like
For
literally
all our cop fans that are watching.
like they did
Listening.
it. And I'm just like, you're not signing this. I was like, okay. And like the absurdity, they're like for like 25 years too. Then legitimately 48 hours pass. They're like, well, we're going to take legal action. I was like, cool. I'm going to file for unemployment. I filed for unemployment. Never heard from ever fucking again. They changed their name for the company like 2 months later. So
The idea that they're threatening legal action, they can't afford a lawyer.
So you didn't sign it. You got an employment uncontested.
uncontested.
So that was a pure bluff.
Pure bluff that they were just trying to get. But my favorite thing was just they changed every other person's title except for me. It was a pretty small company, maybe like 30 people. And then they're like, we're letting all the assistants go.
I hope after you left, they're like all associates are now assistants.
The change is complete.
Yeah.
Assistant day is over.
It was just like the weirdest thing. It was just like, you could have just fired me. It's fine to not like. They probably lost money updating the website with all their shit. Like paying the IT guy to like update the website.
They're probably afraid that they would have to like fire you for cause or something like that, and then they'd have to like kind of reveal themselves.
I am a big fan of using Excel as a database too. That's always fun.
I love loading the Excel file that's like 5 gigabytes. That's great. You put all the sales data from the last 40 years in there. That's really great, Gladys. I'm really happy that you did this. It's a really good strategy that you thought up, and you think it's really clever. This 5 gigabyte fucking Excel file.
Yeah, I'm really glad the intern could delete all.
Well,
of it if he wanted to.
Oh, you're just gonna email it to me? That's great. I'm really glad the spam filter is gonna pick this up.
Yeah, I can't wait to put version 57 on my desktop.
Oh, I'm getting a phone call from IT now. I think it's a virus because you just sent me this database that you created in one giant 8,000 row Excel file or 80,000 row.
my firing story is not as good as that, but I did have a cyber warfare thing today. It's pretty funny. That relates to cyber. So the only time I got fired was from the accounting office, the forensic accounting office that I just mentioned. I only worked there for about a year and a half.
Like you're on a job interview right now.
Yeah. I got jobs on the brain. About halfway through, I'm like, I can't do this shit anymore. So I go back to grad school, which didn't pan out. I realized I went back to grad school for the wrong reasons, or for the wrong subject at least. But I'm just there. Yeah. So this is about December now. I want to say of 2015 or 2016. I forget which year.
I'm sorry. I just noticed that you have drips of cum down your sleeve.
No, it's stay hydrated.
Is that like
Honestly, I was
With
gonna
cum.
I was gonna wear my other hoodie that says "My dick hurts and itches." The doctor prescribed cream, and it should clear up between the next 10 and 30 business days. It's literally all.
Why didn't you wear that?
I thought we were going to Top Golf. I wanted to wear it tomorrow.
Yeah, that was a good choice. It would be wasted here.
That's true.
We cut you off.
I'm sorry. Yeah, my thing is, so like a year or whatever in, I'm like, I can't do this shit anymore. I gotta go to grad school. I gotta get out of here. I go to grad school. It's like December finals time of like 2015 or 2016. I forget what year. I ended up getting fired, but now it's like the week of finals, right? Or the week and a half beforehand. And my boss has started making it a custom to just come in at noon whenever he wanted to, randomly, not on schedule, just like, oh, yeah, you know, you might expect me here at 9 a.m., but I'm not going to come until like 1 p.m. or whatever, without saying anything. So I talked to the other, second in command boss, other part owner. I'm like, hey, I got this final on December, blah, 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 whatever the hell it was. I'm only going to be here till noon that day. Then I got to go. I gotta go take this fucking test. And he's all right, yeah, sure. I put it on the company calendar, whatever. Now, turns out a couple days later, oh, we have a report to do that day. One of those reports I aforementioned that he's got to sign. I have it all prepared. This is also a day out of nowhere. He decides I'm not coming in until 12:30. I'm just like, okay, whatever. 12:30, he comes in. I kind of just like email it to him, and I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta leave. I got a test to go take. So I do. I go. I think at this point, actually, I realize I don't want to do this in grad school. I just go home and get drunk. But but then all of a sudden, my phone starts blowing up, and I'm just like, what's this? And I see all these texts. Where are you? I need your help with this report. This thing is due tomorrow.
I have
you.
Come back.
I miss your body. All these texts, and I'm just drinking kind of laughing at them and putting my phone face down and just ignoring it, as a good person does. And then I'm just like, all right, well, screw this. They all think I'm supposed to be at a final. I'm supposed to be in the final, for all intents and purposes, to any good-natured, everyone else, I am at a final. Really, I'm drinking Absolute in my room. But so this is like Friday too. Or no, this is Thursday. Maybe. I don't know. All I know is Friday night, I get a text from the second guy, the second in command, the guy who knew, actually, who is such, just like, I don't know. He just always was subservient to like the other guy to a disgusting, groveling degree, like how
the Dwight to his Michael.
Yes, exactly.
Was it really that bad?
Exactly. Yeah, it really was. Because I told him about it. He knew about it. And then all of a sudden you're talking to me like you didn't know. We had a conversation. What do you mean you didn't know I was leaving? You're the reason I put it on the calendar.
Didn't you also get this job through the Michael Scott of this company through your dad?
Yeah, this was a family friend. Yeah, this was a family friend. So Friday night, I got a text from the Dwight guy, and he's like, yeah, don't bother coming on Monday or something. Basically to that effect. I mean, literally, like, don't bother coming on Monday was part of the text. I was like, all right, I'm going to keep drinking. At that point, I just leave. Or, like, I'm just done. And I just got fired. I was like, good luck. I don't know how you guys are going to do this. All those files on my computer. My manifesto, gone. I wonder what they thought of that, but, that was only about halfway complete.
I don't even think you're kidding.
I'm not. I mean, I started writing. This was like earlier, right after college. So I was like, I have a lot of big ideas. People haven't thought of it. Well, I've thought it before. Turns out that wasn't true at all. But
Ted was your boy more than you knew.
It's just all more anti-capitalist and anti-tech shit. But it was honestly,
fresh out of college, like no one's ever heard of anti-capitalism before.
What if money was bad?
All right. I was going to talk about Hannah Arendt and then Washington Post. Some philosopher.
Real quick. So today, my company got hacked. My boss's email got hacked, actually. Like, legitimately complete access. So this morning, I have a meeting with some company. I have to drive somewhere, and then I get into the office around 11 a.m., and then around 11:30, I hear my office is right next to my boss's. And my coworker, I see go up. He's like, hey, did you send me an email about like some credit transfer? And he's like, what? No. And then I check my email. I have one too. I'm like, oh, what the hell? Why do I have this? And then I go out. Turns out everyone in my company has this. Why the hell did my boss send this out? And then he's like, no, I didn't send that. I'm like, okay, that's a red flag. I send the company email out. I'm like, hey, nobody open this. Nobody click on this HTMLX attachment. Nobody should click on this. Yeah, nobody click on the attachment. Blah blah blah. Because someone did, and they're like, yeah, it's asking me to log into my Microsoft account. I'm like, don't, please don't. Yeah, please do not do that. My boss is like, yeah, it's weird. I've been getting all these multi-factor authentication notifications on my app. I'm like, okay. So I called the other real IT guy who my company shit canned like 3 months ago and definitely should not have, because now I'm the de facto IT guy, but I have like a quarter of the knowledge, right? Well, I know some things, but I don't know everything. So I tell him about this. He's like, yeah, we're going to have to reset his password and sign him out of all his devices, blah, blah, blah. So, I reset his password. I sign him out. So he has to re-sign in, make a new password, whatever. But I tell him, like, yeah, your password, if you're getting multi-factor authentication notification on your phone, they already have your password. They have it. This is the only thing stopping them. So, like,
the only thing stopping them actually at that point is like a SIM card or a SIM attack, right? Like a SIM stealing or SIM, whatever it's called.
I asked
SIM
him, like,
phishing.
so you said no every time? He's like, yeah. I'm like, obviously. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, one time you said yes. You must said yes one time because they're in. And they got emails out to everyone.
I've actually heard, since like now that I'm in security, I've heard that it's like a very common, like the most common phishing attempt now is they fatigue you with multi-factor notifications. And like people just
at a certain point, yes.
It's like you're doing, if they're giving it to you like 10 times a minute and for like hours or whatever, and like the middle of the night, people just wake up and just hit yes because they're like tired. They don't like want to make their phone shut up.
I'm sorry. SIM swapping was the thing.
SIM swapping.
Yeah. That's the thing where like
But this is like
if
a
they
big
can't
deal
get
now.
you on like hounding you like repeatedly, they'll just actually contact the likes of like the big telecoms like Verizon or AT&T.
Yeah.
And they'll do some social engineering, and rather than even like contact you, they'll contact some schlub at fucking Verizon or T-Mobile, and they'll just steal your information for your specific
phone or whatever.
Your specific phone number.
Dupe it or something. Or clone it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In essence, like they'll say like, hey, somebody else like attacked me. Like I need to get my information back. And, you know, once you start talking to an actual individual, like a human on the other end.
If you know like, basic details, you're going to
You can just social engineer your way through. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, I got all these. Did you click any of them? No. Obviously, he did at some point. Everyone's getting emails. Turns out all our customers, everyone on his email address book, everyone got one. It's terrible, right? So like, I'm like, oh shit. Okay, we reset his password. And then I'm like, okay, good. We're saved now. You know, he changed it, whatever. I get an email like 20 minutes later. I'm like, oh fuck, what the fuck's going on? I call the IT guy. I was like, is it possible they have like drafts set up and they have something like scheduled to send them out like every 30 minutes or something? He's like, yeah, let's go see if there's any rules. I log in as him. I ask him for his password. I log in as him. I check out the rules. There is one set. Turns out any email coming to the inbox, mark as read immediately and put into a new folder called Blessed.
This is your boss?
Yeah. I'm like, my boss definitely does not have a folder called Blessed. You know, this hacker, I guess, I was like, oh man, I hit the fucking jackpot, you know, Blessed, you know, and every email that comes back, just, you know, mark as read, put in Blessed. So I'm like, okay, disable. All of a sudden, he starts getting all these, you know, failed to send or whatever, because Microsoft, thankfully, after you send 800 emails a day, I think it's the default, they mark you as spam and you can't send anymore. So now he's just getting, his inbox is again full of cannot send, you know, emails. And then I get an email as an admin like, oh yeah, high severity alert for blank at blank.com for, you know, spamming. I was like, okay, good. Now, the funniest part, though, is that I know this dude's passwords from the application I built in-house when I got there. Well, what I worked on when I got there. They used to store passwords plain text. So I knew what it was. And this is the kind of guy who probably used the same password for everything. Like a lot of people do. I don't blame him. I do the same shit, you know? But one word, 4 letters. That's his password when I first got there. Then he upgraded to 1 word, 6 letters, you know, just another name. So I'm guessing that's what he used. It was just a baseball player's last name, all lowercase. And so I tell him, you have to change your password. I recommended use 2 or preferably 3 or 4 words just randomly. And then, you know, maybe a symbol.
I'm going to put out a PSA, rempe.us/diceware. If you want to make a strong password, go to that website.
Just all you really need is 4 separate words. That's all you really need.
Special characters and numbers.
And a couple of special characters. So here's what he gives me. When I ask for his password to log in again so I can see what's going on. Lou Gehrig, exclamation point. It's like, you're going to get hacked again, man. That's all I'm thinking when I'm seeing this. So I'm just like, fuck, Jesus Christ. So, but the funniest part about all of this is, so he sent out, well, not him, but the hacker sent out thousands of emails, or tried to, right? When I logged in, there was like 2,000 drafts been ready to go. One of our customers got one of them, clicked on it, clicked on the attachment, got an alert from his antivirus that it was a Trojan, and then his email disappeared. So he called our office asking us to send him the email again.
Maybe he asked like his friend to send him the Trojans game.
Our secretary was like, no, don't open that. He's like, oh, I did, and it disappeared on me, and I got some message about Trojans, and
sounds pretty cool.
And it disappeared, so I wanted to respond. He's like, and she's like, no.
Yeah, I got a big dick. Yeah.
Oh, finally, the Trojan factory's calling my order from Extra Giant Condom.
He's the only one. Everyone else is like, hey, I got this weird email from you, and my boss had to apologize and say, yeah, I got a compromise. I mean, at the first one, my boss tried joking. He's like, yeah, you know, if you want a basic, no, sorry, actually, I got hacked. but after that, he stopped being so coy about it after like the 8th call. And then actually, yeah, he did leave early. Which was nice. I got to leave early, but it was unscheduled. But yeah,
you're not going into work on Monday.
No. Yeah. Well, hire an IT guy. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's kind of kind of a 101
Yeah.
IT to have something like.
Can you send that Trojan again?
We're a Durex family, and you know it.